This clip was pretty insightful. It was a talk with John and Ellen about my family, the Pereiros, mostly having to do with my mom and my dad.
Process and others don't, and I just think it's very nice. And it's good your dad was able to go down and your mom and visit and do things.
There was a lot of closure before anything really happened, for sure. And she really was passing away slowly for 10 weeks or so. But, yeah, I think it was a lot more draining on my mom, honestly, than it was my dad.
Yeah, I think probably, I mean, when your grandfather, Eggy, died, that was really, really, really rough on your mom.
I know. I wasn't even sensitive enough to, at that point, to realize it.
We even, because, we came to Florida and, a couple of those visits, I mean, it was rough. Very edgy, and your father was working on that attic above and getting stuff, getting that space done, and your mom was uptight, about that because it was her father that she was so close to.
Yeah.
And I think that, with your father's parents, she was probably getting closer actually to your grandfather. Mm-hmm. But, I think for your mom, she's been fully embraced by the Pereiro family, and even though she's been a Pereiro for a long time, she's kept that Eggy strong.
I don't even think she would try to deny that fact.
Right.
She can fit in well with the Pereiros, but she's certainly not one of them.
No, and she doesn't want to be.
Oh no, definitely not.
Right. She had, her own, even like going on the girls' trips and doing all of those kinds of things, and it's even like going with your uncle to go to Europe.
Right.
I mean, I get the sense that your mom wouldn't mind going without them, going with John and I.
Yeah.
Because she feels like, there's things that are expected. She has to cook. She has to, do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It definitely restricts, I think, how she feels like she can be, unless there's wine involved, which there always is. I think that loosens her up at the end of the day. But those 8 hours preceding when everyone starts to drink, I don't think she looks forward to those per se.
Well, I think it's the decision making, and your mom is unique, and and I even think about as Morgan's going off and doing things, and as you went off and went to Japan, your mom, packed up her car and went to Florida, and took what she could fit in her car, and started a new life for herself, and. Now, maybe she went there because of a guy, but she instantly became a Florida chick, and she's never deviated from that. Even with all these years of living in Atlanta or in Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's sadly, too, that's a part of her life I don't know anything about.
What, her?
She's never told me. I mean, I've asked her questions because I've heard bits and pieces of it from other people, but she's never told me her personal history, nor do I know my dad's. I don't know where they come from, why they're so weird, why the qualities and traits that they have are there. Their personal histories, I know them from the point I was born onward, because I've been part of their family. But who they were before then, I don't really know. I know that it seems to me that they came together because they were both in love with a lifestyle that they both wanted. And I think that they were good partners in that. But everything that brought them together before that, the things that led up to their meeting and everything, I'm not very aware.
Well, Well, I mean, wherever your mom was working, your dad went in and found her, and I think your dad made up his mind right then and there.
Yeah, he did.
He
I'm
met
sure.
somebody that had caught his attention, and I don't think he ever. I mean, he had girlfriends in college, but
There was one that he was going to get married to,
right.
and that's a story that I only heard about really in any detail when I went to Tallahassee to go see Mame back in April. And he told me a little bit about it. So it was a pretty crushing blow when she left him, and he did not deal with it as well as I dealt with Brittany and I breaking up. But again, that's an ambiguous statement. I don't know what he means by that. And the details of his personal history remain unseen by me.
Well, I mean, I really don't know too much about your father's college history. I think he was a pretty wild child.
Yeah.
Didn't apply himself.
He had a talking to by his father.
Mr. Papa.
Yeah.
There are racehorses and there are mules. I've heard that story before. That was what Papa said. The world needs both.
That's Marshall's, right?
Yeah. I was going to go file and I got distracted. So, yeah. And so I think, your father didn't really apply himself, and then he found your mother. And probably you're right that your father's family's lifestyle was exceedingly appealing to her.
I wonder. I don't know.
I think so.
During that stage of my mom's life, perhaps.
Because it was very different.
Yeah. Although she romanticizes her childhood so much now, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I can sense her sense of loss, but it's weird because I don't know. It's just like it's like opening a book and starting in the middle and trying to make sense of every reference to what would have been in the pages before.
She came from Middle America. So wholesome. Her family wasn't, but Middle America was wholesome.
Well, she's from Indiana, and your mother was always the edgy, I believe.
The
and,
edgy,
all the things, the cooking
Yeah.
and the having things in the kitchen. She is very different from her siblings.
Doubtlessly.
She is very different from her mother.
Certainly.
And was obviously much tighter. Is that Marshall? You might put the garage door open so I can just put this back in. That
Marshall?
garage door.
Huh?
That garage door.
With the van, he can't open it himself?
Oh, he has a van?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was on his bike. Okay.
I told him it was 100 degrees today,
Okay.
so.
And so, but your mother romanticizes the farm.
She does.
And it was her brother who busted his ass on that farm.
I believe it.
And I don't think your brother, and maybe not even Sheila. I think your mom was the homecoming queen, the beautiful one, the one that did the music, the one. She was a cheerleader, wasn't she?
I don't even know, to be honest. She was in the marching band.
Yeah, she was in marching band. Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
I don't know if she was a cheerleader before that.
So she was the one that was off, and she had her boyfriend.
Right, so she was living a different lifestyle. No doubt. But then Sheila and Sandy, I don't know. I know that Lee is probably the most similar to... He probably has followed the path that his parents set out for him most, because he has his own farm. He lives sort of secluded. Sometimes even when I go to Indiana with my family, I don't see him because he lives so far away, and he doesn't usually come to see us.
Right. Well, he's a farmer, and he works his butt off. It doesn't quit.
Right.
And see, I think your mom probably detasseled corn, and she probably did some stuff like that. And I have to say that, I thought that I would go back to Iowa and farm. I always thought it'd be cool to find a guy who had a farm who didn't want a farm. But it's a lot of hard work. And like your grandfather, they died early because all those chemicals and all that crap. And
Yeah.
it's dangerous, hard work. And actually a lot of stress because there's a lot of big financing stuff involved. But anyway, so but you know, you're the barn and all of that kind of stuff, and maybe sometimes I think that your mom's longing for the farm is kind of, you know, you're the Pereira family's always had grandparents' property and been very stable, and so the farm is like that. And there's, you know, the Pereira cars, and
Right.
we still have the Pereira white ball magic for selling cars up in our cabinet, you know.
I want to hold
And so
this car.
and the closeness in the family and stuff like that. And so maybe that's, you know, kind of the spin, kind of, you know, how it kind of all blends between the two sides. And your mom has, I think, always been close to Sheila. But you know,
She
when
has,
before you and Lauren were born, your mom wasn't.
That makes sense. I mean, Sheila to me represents her. I think she has a lot of guilt and like self-resentment for leaving, because I know she wanted to leave, but I think it seems like she often wishes that she hadn't. Just, I guess, so she could be closer to family and be there for important decisions like whether or not to take the barn down and sell it for timber, or whether or not to allow her family house to be rented out by people that she doesn't know, which my grandma did that, and then they were arrested for drugs or something like that. Great.
Wholesome.
But on the
Mid-America.
other hand, you know, and it is interesting because your mom doesn't like to move houses, but your mom would be miserable in that family house. I don't
imagine so.
understand her attraction to that house at all.
I think it's just the history. I think it represents her dad to her,
Yeah.
because he was born there, and then it's sort of like stomping on his memories. I think that's why my mom might resent her own mom so much for marrying all the people that she did, and
Right.
just sort of moving on too quickly for
Right.
something that was so
Right.
devastating for my mom.
Right. No, it was devastating for your mom because the things that your grandfather built and you know, your mom, for your mom, those things are extremely sentimental.
It's so
Yeah.
strange.
And where I'm more, I mean, I have a few things that I'm sentimental about that are in this house, but most of it,
Yeah. I wonder what my mom's original aspiration was, though. Like, what actually led her.
oh, I don't know what she got her degree in. It's in business.
I know she has a Bachelor of Science, so maybe
Yeah.
it is in business.
Yeah, I think it's business.
Yeah. But it's such a broad thing.
And you
How-
know, when your mom and dad moved to Virginia,
Yeah.
it was a much better job for your mom than for your dad.
Is that
I
what
mean,
she-
they moved here because
Yeah.
of your dad's job. But then your mom was Sprint and stuff like that. She
Right.
was the one that really moved up and
Yeah, I know she did pretty well. She said that that's been one of her regrets, too, that she didn't try to work to move up even higher when she was a Sprint.
well, but when she
Had me, I guess.
no, she kept working until Lauren was born, and then your dad got laid off.
He got laid off back then. I didn't know that.
When you moved from Virginia to Florida, your dad was unemployed for a long time.
Then he's had several trends of that same state.
Well, being in the construction business has been really, really hard. Yeah, he worked for Clark, and so we always go past the building that was the last building that your dad built.
Before
It's on the way
unemployment.
over to George Mason, yeah. And you know, so you know, the economy was really bad. Your sister was born, and your dad was unemployed. And so that's how you went back to Florida. Was you got the job with Hardin Construction?
Right, so that was his first time working with Hardin when he moved to Florida.
No,
No.
I think he'd worked with Hardin before.
Okay, interesting.
And then, you know, that's how you went to Georgia. Because then
I definitely
there was,
remember that, yeah.
Right. And that was awful then. And I really thought that your dad going in and working with your brother, because I've always thought your dad should build houses. I mean, your mom and your dad together have a fabulous eye. And your dad is just amazing with his ability to find and do and put things together. And I thought that he could have been a small but custom home builder and
Yeah.
been fabulous. And I thought that pairing up with your uncle's business and doing that, and it was for a little while
Yeah.
while the economy was ripping, but nobody has made any money. I mean, we had the young kid that did our garage and stuff like that. I mean, he's actually still been making it and still doing well. But most of these people don't have any kind of job like what they used to have. And, you know, I don't think your dad didn't have the engineering and stuff for some of the other kind of construction projects.
Yeah, but he's a good manager of those sorts of things.
He's great.
Yeah,
You
but-
know, he's a real people person.
Yeah,
He can handle 10 phones at a time.
at least.
He's really good at cutting a deal.
Yeah, that situation, I must say, was a little too incestuous, I think, for my mom. Too much family in that situation, and my mom is so sensitive to other people. She cannot really, even to this day, working at Pineapple House, she can't really express her own opinions or thoughts about what should be done or what could be done, because she regulates herself to such a intense degree that she doesn't want to say something to Cynthia or Stephen that is going to upset my dad. So I think what you're saying could have been a powerhouse situation with all the siblings working together. But
Well, and with your mom doing the books, because it's always good to have a family person doing
Oh,
the
yeah,
books.
for sure.
If everybody in the family is dependent on that income, she's the right person to be doing the books. And she's she's really taught herself an awful lot of this. It wasn't, she was doing payroll and stuff like that at Sprint and some other HR stuff and things like that.
yeah,
And I, when you guys moved to Florida, because, one of my big things was Kenneth, and this is, you can think about this when you have your own children, is John and I were both older and knew that if both people aren't working, then you don't grow and develop together. Now, what would have been ideal is to have 2 3/4 jobs instead of 2 full-time jobs when you have little kids. Little kids are a pain in the butt. To where you're out, you want to be there with them, you want to
Yeah.
do whatever.
yeah,
And John and I were fortunate in that we could make the commitment to work close to home. One would go in early, one would go in late to make the kids' days shorter, so that we could do the coaching, do whatever it was that we wanted and needed to do. And so we were very, very fortunate. But we talked a little bit about one parent staying home to take care of the kids. The reality is it's not when your kids are little, but they need their parents at home. It's when they're teenagers.
that makes
Quite
sense.
frankly.
Yeah, it's a more crucial stage of life in a
Yep.
way, in a definite way.
Yep. Because when they're little, you know where they are, you know what they're doing, you know who they're with.
Right.
Like, you don't have
Yeah.
too much idea. And so we just were older and had watched other people raising kids.
Right.
And so we already knew that if anything, John could retire when our kids were going to be teenagers, and if he needed to be home, that could happen.
What happened? How come that didn't happen?
That's a different topic. Anyway, so
Things change.
yes, they do change. And you need to go out on a high note, remember that? And so
Sure. Well, I'll take amphetamines anyway.
You can get them from my mom's house if you want,
Good.
in Indiana. I'm sure they're under the floorboards or something.
I'm sure you can get it from the neighbors next door. But anyway, so when you guys moved to Florida, your mom did get a job, and she really wanted to try doing the catering, because your mom is a fabulous cook.
Right.
And, she did the stuff for the lady who owns Red Lobster. What's her name?
Oh, Mary Darden.
Mary Darden. And she did that stuff.
She was doing
And-
catering? Okay.
Oh, yeah. And that was, and then your dad built the bigger kitchen and floor and all that kind of stuff to handle that stuff. Your mom did quite a bit. Now, she would have been better off just to buy Darden stock, quite
Right.
frankly.
But for her own soul's sake, I'm
Right.
sure that was good for her.
Right. And your mom really liked being home with you guys.
We tried to talk her out of that.
And
I don't remember any of that. It's so weird.
so, then I think your mom did work again because when your dad lost his job again and then came up and, and we have other people, my aunt and uncle. I mean, my uncle's always unemployed and, it's hard and it's painful to watch and one of the problems for us was, your school schedule and our kids' school schedule never matched. Once you moved to Atlanta,
Right.
they never...
Vacations, everything off.
Yeah, everything
Right.
was off. When we were in Florida for a while there, we came down a lot and visited you guys. But your mom and dad always developed really close friends with the neighborhood. We were the ones that didn't have that neighborhood partnership,
Right.
because, let's face it, so I guess we could have had a foursome. We could have had Mrs. Duffy with Mr. Hutchett. Vicky would be your favorite, right? Oh, that's right. Now you probably go for Sharon. That'd be bad.
You'd want a Doug down the street.
Doug?
Doug, the
Oh,
Navy guy, was like plumber's crook.
Thanks, John.
Interesting.
So anyway, we were the ones that haven't had neighbors and friends like your parents have had. And I think that kind of not working suited your mom's schedule because it takes a lot of energy to cook food for your dad
How
and for
early?
you. I mean, you ate a ton, and your mom had
Is it warm enough for you today?
Yeah.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Not so much for your dad.
How hungry are
A
you?
huge lunch, a huge dinner.
I'll go shower first.
Okay, I'm going to
I
start
mean, they might go
close.
out to eat too, but
It was rare. We didn't eat that
and
much.
all that prepping, all that grocery shopping, all that's a lot of work.
Yeah, it was a full-time job.
I mean, John and I tell stories about your mom. I don't even know what the occasion was. We did store-bought frozen pizzas. By the time your mom gets done with, she's just going to add a little. It's like a gourmet pizza, and I don't know what it was because I remember her chopping up basil and getting the
Right.
mushrooms and
Right.
because your dad is not going to have that for a meal.
It's weird to think about it that way, but yeah, that's probably true.
I mean, John's hungry. I say, check the refrigerator, buddy.
Right. Yeah, my dad has expectations.
Yes, he does. And your mother has always.
Met the bar, for sure. Exceeded the
I
bar.
mean, I can remember when your mom and dad came up here, I fixed a tuna soup. It's lots of vegetables,
Yeah.
tuna in it. Well, that wasn't actually meat,
According to my dad.
right?
He is a weirdo. There's no doubt about it. And that's just one of his weird tendencies. That's why this has nothing to do with that, but whenever I make dinner for my family, I can tell he doesn't like it, and I wish that he would just tell me how I could make it better. But he has this weird passive way of saying that he doesn't like it. And he just says that it was good, and it may not be what he would have chosen, but he liked it. And this is it's obvious that he wouldn't like something that's predominantly vegetables and likely to be more focused on nutrition than taste. But in order to incorporate him into the meal too, he does not tell me what he would add to make it better.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has
Well, it
the
starts
creative
with meat,
understanding.
probably, but
It probably does, but he doesn't even tell me that. I mean, there's just so much you can. If it has too much spice, which I know he does not, he's not very adventurous when it comes to food.
Right.
He could eat the same thing for the rest of his life every day, and probably be satisfied.
well, and that's it's like with the wine. It's
Yeah.
like the carrots with the ranch dressing. He has his standard.
It's just so strange though, because he's so myopic and so just on his path with blinders on. It's frustrating to me.
Well,
I mean, it's stable, but with me wanting to explore the world and a different perspective and stuff like that, I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's just a complete
I think that comes
rejection.
from your mother.
It could, but
Besides
still.
the fact that you're almost a freaking copy of her these days, it's really amazing.
In what
with your
way?
hair longer,
Oh, yeah,
your
yeah.
face, and and even your body, and even I'm watching your hands because I always thought you had your dad's hands.
Oh yeah, definitely not. My sister does. She has his hands and feet, and I have my mom's.
And you are so your mom.
Mm-hmm.
It is just really amazing. And I always your graduation picture. I always really looked at that
Yeah.
because when you were little, you were more. And did you see the picture of you and Morgan in the bathroom?
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
because you're the only non-family member in there. And as John says, well, we don't know he's non-family yet.
John's funny about that.
Well, it's funny because we always talk about Morgan's betrothed.
Oh, yeah.
And people are like, what? And they're like, are you serious? I mean, like, are you serious? I mean,
Yeah.
and I said, well, she hasn't seen him for, 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, I see. And to me, you're wanting to explore and stuff like that. It's just like your mom.
It could be, but it's just so strange because my mom doesn't have that spirit anymore. It's gone. She's very afraid of the outside world in a very real way, like actual fear.
Look, all I know is when she just told me she would vote for Sarah Palin, I was like, God, I can't believe that.
Yeah. She thinks that there's danger lurking outside her door. I mean, it's a very real thing. It's not like a vague sense of discomfort. Like she does not believe that the world is a safe place. I don't think she has much faith in people. And I think that may be a turnoff to her because traveling would just be encountering other types of people that she already doubts.
When we went to Glacier,
Yeah.
all I could think about was I would like to have your mom and dad be with us.
Yeah.
I think your mother would love it because I want to hike the wall and and it's a couple-day trek.
Right.
When you go to a cabin and,
Yeah.
and I'm not really a camper, but I would do it.
For the experience.
Right.
Right. And I understand that.
Right.
But I don't even think my mom, she was the most physically up for it, but her back and her neck have been hurting her so much for the past 5 years in particular.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's got a huge correlation with just the state of her mind. I think the mind-body connection is important to
But
consider.
her neck and stuff
Mm-hmm.
has bothered her for a long time. And I guess she had a couple car accidents. I mean, there's a couple of things.
I mean, that didn't
And-
agitate it much, I don't think.
And she probably has arthritis. See, it's really interesting with John not
Yeah.
riding his bike.
Mm-hmm.
He stopped complaining about his back. He stopped complaining about his neck. And he definitely has arthritis in his neck.
Right.
And rowing seems to be not,
Doesn't aggravate it?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's, the biking. And I hate biking. And it's part of it is comfort. And maybe my bike really didn't fit me quite
Yeah.
right, even though it was bought, for me.
Right.
It was a really great bike. But it's also, I finally figured out I'm goofy-footed with my foot, and I grab the brake with the left, so it should have been. So that's why I always go over the top because wrong
Right.
one.
Right. Yeah.
So it only took me how many years to figure that out? But anyway, so it's really interesting. Like when your parents come up here,
Yeah.
it's as if they've never been gone. Your mom and I can work in the kitchen just like we always did.
Right.
So it's a wonderful friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Your dad coming up with John, I can't even begin to tell you how much that relieved my mind.
Yeah.
Because, John had no idea how sick he was. And actually the best thing I did was I took him to see a neurologist who just did the basic test. John was like stunned at how much he didn't know and remember, and over time he's healed more, but it was very interesting for a long time because I never knew what version of a story I was going to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, we were talking about it because you said you want to go to George Mason, so I'm assuming that the two of you talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's like, I'm telling him what to do, and I'm like, ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell you. I'm just asking.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some weird
Differences.
and for him to have that minor, quite frankly, of the differences compared to what he went through, is amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
The fact that he So the grill is happening.
I started the grill.
Marshall went to clean up.
Your oil was not changed.
I'm sure of it. Okay. So I guess he probably got to those codes and got stuck and said, why bother?
We got in and started looking at your muffler, actually. bigger and then got it all
Yeah, it doesn't make the noise anymore.
wrapped around the axle on that one and we forgot.
Yep, yep. So, anyway. So I will set the table over there. I'm just going to clean up this table. It's pretty gross.
Mangified.
Well, it's really interesting. I'm noticing this everywhere. So I don't know what's the problem, but whatever is in glass cleaning products these days is leaving this foam, this stuff. And at work now, when they clean the bathroom mirrors, and I'm in a new building. It was in the old building. It's in the new building. It's still got the same streaks.
Yeah.
It's keeping me.
It keeps me up. I can't stand it. I mean, I haven't called David to see what the solution is. What's the correct product to be using?
I wonder if it has to do with the glass or if it has to do with the way that whatever the
It's got to be the cleaning product.
could be the way that the dust interacts with it or something like that.
I don't have
Could be.
a dusty house.
Dust.
Not in my house.
Well, you may not have a dusty house per se, but dust is also very, very small.
Dust is everywhere. It's amazing. Just amazing.
Most dust is skin cells. You can't help that.
Right? Now they can track my pathogens
Yeah.
everywhere I go.
That's how the fleas eat. They just follow the trails of dust.
So anyway, but now with the neighbors and stuff like that. Now, has your mom got some best friends?
Well, we had a friend from Florida, a family, the Myers.
Right.
Yeah, they
Your
moved out.
mom really does.
Yeah, and she's her best friend now. My mom has definitely changed a lot in terms of who she interacts with because they are here now. But truth be told, I mean, she lost her best friend to cancer, and she never really found someone to that same caliber. So this is someone who was a good friend in Florida before, but I think they become better friends only because of the loss of her real. Like they were all friends together,
Right.
but I think that brought them closer together, even still.
See, and your mom would probably email me a lot more and stuff, but after I do 500 or 600 emails a day at work, that is like the last thing, and that's why I like Facebook. And I mean, I just like,
Yeah,
it's hard enough to do the ones I have to do.
yeah, I know what you mean.
And I would call your mom, but your mom doesn't really want to do that because she's probably on the phone, and so.
Well, I don't know. I mean, she's hard to get in touch with phone-wise. My sister and
Yes.
I both cannot get in touch with her, which is ironic because of how...
Usually that's the other way around.
Yeah, and she's very neurotic about whether or not we're safe in general, but it's she who's hard to get in touch with. My sister's a little bit hard. I think she scans calls a lot and doesn't respond if she doesn't want to, but I'm pretty good. I see my
It's so
parents...
invasive.
It is.
Calls are so invasive.
My sister does have a life, but I see my parents really
Your sister
very
does
regularly.
have life, is it in comparison to yours, or what? What does that mean?
That was more a joke, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, she doesn't have a life. I mean, she.
No, why is she going to Georgia State? Why did she decide to change?
She is going to be studying nutrition, and Kennesaw does not have a nutrition program.
Okay.
But I wonder what she's really in store for because she's having a tremendous difficulty already just with the beginning chemistry classes. And she had a lab a few weeks ago that was kind of a weird situation. Her lab teacher got really mad at her and her partner because it took so long. But the lab was purely just to show the students how to make a lab report. And so it wasn't really a real lab. There was no chemistry element to it, really, like in a very intense situation. Or it wasn't the curriculum it was just to understand the motions. And she struggled just through that. Like they went over 5 minutes, like it's like a 2-hour time period that they had to complete the lab. And she still wasn't able to do it. I mean, she's not very mathematically minded. She never has been. And the
Chemistry, and you need your math.
yeah.
You really need calc.
Mm-hmm.
Calc with trig, the first class
Right.
for chemistry.
Yeah, she's never been awful at that, but I think the way her mind operates is just not on that realm of like academia. She does well with people, emotions, things like that. But if she's able to go all the way through this program, it will be a real testament to just her sheer power of will, because it's going to be intense.
So now, did all the stuff that she'd taken already transfer? Or
It did.
Okay.
So she's fulfilled all like the basic requirements just for core classes and stuff. But when it comes to major coursework, she's really just starting. So she'll probably have a 5-year plan. Mm-hmm. and she doesn't have. She lost the scholarship that we have, where you get free tuition.
Yeah.
So she's also had to pay. Yeah,
She dropped below 3.2.
she
No,
did.
3.0 or 3.2?
It actually is 3.0. When you asked me that earlier, I misunderstood what you were asking. I thought you were asking me what my GPA was.
Okay.
But yeah, it is. It's changed now. It's more stratified. I don't know what the change actually is, but regardless, my grandma, before she passed away, she gave us like $13,000 for school, and that's already gone. That was only given us a year ago, and it's pretty amazing that vast quantity of money is already gone. It was like intended for graduate school and stuff like that, and probably could have been saved for that, but some of it went to me going to Japan, and then the rest of it went to my sister.
Okay, well, you going to Japan was, you needed to do that.
I did. Yeah, no, it was worth it. But it's just unfortunate that funds that could have been saved for later as well are already gone. Which I'm sure there were $13,000 is probably a drop in the bucket compared to the full sum that my grandma has and had. But still, that was when I came back and I learned that was already gone. I was kind of shocked.
No, it goes pretty fast. I mean,
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
even
Though.
when you look at the tuition for the kids, Morgan was, also the check was so cheap, but
Yeah.
I mean, we probably, I figure in her 4 years we had about $105,000 in it. So
Wow. Did she have a lot of scholarships and stuff?
she had none.
None.
She doesn't qualify. I mean, she's not academically that gifted, and financially we don't
right.
qualify. And
Right.
so,
It'll be interesting for Lauren to be down at state. It'll be a completely different environment.
now she's got a friend that's her lab. I mean, she's got.
Well, that was just her lab partner for the time. She's actually taking chemistry in Kennesaw, so she hasn't fully moved down yet. She's registered to start in the fall.
Okay.
But
She was in a sorority too.
no, she wasn't running a sorority. She was in a running club for a little while, but that's really the only thing she's done that was like a extracurricular activity within the school. I guess she has a job now, but it's not a very serious job. She works about 1 day a week now. She's reduced her hours for the summer so she can focus on chemistry. It's weird too. This job it's her first job she's ever really had, and she has to drive about 30 miles just to get there.
Oh, really?
She works at a yogurt place, so there's nothing particularly special about the job, yet it's pretty demanding. It takes a long time to get there. It takes a long time to go back. And the shifts are like 7 hours or something. Yogurt land.
Marshall Finley,
Yeah.
your book arrived, I think. But what's your schedule for tomorrow and for Friday? Don't know yet.
I don't know.
What's the matter?
This clip was recorded at John, Ellen, Marshall, and Morgan's local farmers market, and John and I went there the morning of the day that I had proposed that I would cook dinner for everyone as a special thank you, and it was also the day that their daughter Morgan came home from her training in Baltimore, Maryland, I believe, for her next big venture in life, which will be a year spent with AmeriCorps.
If you come down and you go to the Reston one, and you see the same people.
Yeah, some of the same. Yeah.
Every day, getting up early,
Yeah.
unloading and packing. Well, Kenneth, I still haven't made my mind up whether I'm going to,
The seal.
if I have to make that pasta with basil and tomatoes, or
Ooh, that sounds good.
it is. It's a good summer thing. You just make the pasta, and it's a mixture of tomatoes and garlic and basil
Finally got my garden
and cheese. I use feta cheese, and you just serve after you cook pasta. Just pour the pasta over it, mix it, and use it. It's just,
Sounds the only.
the tomatoes. Tomatoes have, they're acidic, so they temper the garlic a little bit. But yeah, it's a great summer dish. Except I have to make it, so that's why I'm trying to figure out something for Ellen, my wife, to make instead. Because I'm going to be riding, I'll be tired.
Well, I think I've come to somewhat of a realization here that I don't have any cash. So I think, but it should be my treat.
I understand. You can pay me back. We're here.
True. But I think it's okay to get everything all at once.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind.
There it is. If you don't mind, I don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, that way I can get things. That I
You
need all
came
at
here,
once.
my young lad, without any cash or sustenance. What were you thinking? You're not,
College
right?
student. Yeah, I'm not.
He's a college.
The only thing is that
I'm hoping I can just get by.
Yeah, I figure. Okay. Well, then let's get her in gear then.
Okay.
We'll go to the store later.
Okay.
We usually always got
Safeway's the closest bet.
Oh, we do. There's I've got a multitude of ones. I'd probably go to Giant for your stuff or Whole Foods. Because those have the better vegetables.
True.
Not change?
Not so smushy.
All right, so I'll make this meal. I just have to, since it's all one thing, I've got to get some tomatoes.
Okay. Are you a big fan of heirlooms? Heirloom tomatoes?
Don't know.
These big ones here. Those are the heirlooms.
They're not ripe. I need the ripe.
Yeah, but it's
I don't
interesting.
care. Actually, I like we used to get these ones that were mixed. They're stripes. Stripes. Morgan. That was Morgan. Morgan is a big tomato fan.
Is she?
Absolutely. So, I want more pulp. I want them as ripe as possible. Now, you know these have. These are hothouse.
Oh, are they?
It's kind of early in the season, my friend. Right? I've got some tomatoes that are coming. Just stick your hand in there and squeeze and find some nice soft ones. I don't need-
This clip was recorded as John and I walked home from the farmer's market, and I asked him a few questions about his own cooking. So how do you make pasta? You yourself, do you have a special recipe or a certain way you do it?
Eggs, flour, and a little bit of oil. That's it.
How long have you been making it? I know that you've been making
Forever.
it for a long time.
Forever.
What drove you to start doing that?
Because I cook.
Right. But my mom, for instance, she'll make a pie crust, and that's important to her.
I make pie crusts.
You do that as well?
Yes. I make great pie crusts.
I believe it.
I have leftovers, I'll make pot pies. I'll make a pot, I'll come home from work and I'll make a pie crust and I'll get all these leftover vegetables and I'll make a sauce and take the pie crust, put in some dish and put that shit over and top it and cook it. It's lovely.
That is.
Leftovers.
But repackaged new.
Yes.
So is there anything that you don't make?
Right. Ellen bakes and
Okay.
stuff and I cook meals.
I see.
That's the labor breakdown.
But you make bread pretty often,
I
right?
make bread. Bread machine. What the heck?
Right.
That's
Simple.
simple.
When was the last time you made a loaf?
Last week.
Is that the loaf that's currently sitting
No, I
over by
bought that. Sometimes when I'm shopping, if I find an appealing loaf, I'll just buy it. And I want to get out on the bicycle too, because I don't have to make sure it looks good as it mixes. Sometimes when you put all this stuff together, you look at that as it's mixing up, and that's not the right consistency. You have to add water, add some flour,
Right.
whatever. Which means I'm not on my bike and I have to watch this. And then I only have so much time because I have to come back. I want to get it out of that thing so it doesn't overcook.
Right.
So long story is, yes, I make bread if I'm devoted to be at home. And otherwise, I sometimes just buy it.
Do you have a favorite kind of bread? Or do you
Yeah,
like to-
sourdough. I like to make. I'm trying to have a sourdough starter that I've done, but it's not very sourdoughy.
the Polish.
I have to pee in it or something. Do something to get more sourdough taste out of it.
When I worked at a pizza place as a dishwasher for about 2 months, we had a mother dough that someone had hidden so that it wouldn't be thrown away behind some boxes or something. And one night when we were closing, I found it, and I asked one of my supervisors what we were supposed to do with this dough that had been left out. And he told me to throw it away.
So you took it home.
I threw it away, and the repercussions of throwing it away were violent.
Because that was their starter.
That was a very special starter that was like it had, I guess, a segment that was from a starter that was in New York that had been going continuously for like 100 years. Mr. Versano was unhappy, to say the least. And my supervisor was kind enough to blame it all on me.
Good.
Yeah. Gruffo. The next series of clips take place when John and I went down to tour the Lee's house at Arlington Cemetery, and it was quite a little ways to get down there. There was some traffic and everything, and any clip in the next several that you hear, in which you hear any sort of music, guitar, kind of rock music, that should be your key that this is part of a series. And it's pretty disjointed topics and everything, and I kind of cut everything, not exactly at the beginning, but I'm going to try to string them together in a way that's coherent, or at least in a way that's easy to pick up on whatever John is talking about. And so these are all mostly featuring John talking about whatever, he went in all directions, and he sort of led the conversation, so I was able to capture his free flow thought.
Leader. But yeah, he shows up in his uniform. He wanted to be general. Mm-hmm. By damn, he was. And then he'd never won any major battles, particularly, but he was smart enough to know that all he had to do is just keep the army in the field. As long as there was an army, there was a revolution.
Right.
And it didn't mean capturing towns or, he'd like to bloody the British, and he did a couple times, but all he had to do was just keep an army in the field. Mm-hmm. And there was a revolution. Mm-hmm. It also came about because he knew he could beat the English because they were too strong. So,
right.
Oh, what's next? Okay, yeah, that's a good idea.
Was the Revolutionary War largely won through acts of attrition, and then also just the sheer distance between?
Yeah, it took a long time, and the English never could figure out how to win over the hearts and minds. I mean, you have to understand that I think there was only about a third of the American population was absolutely patriotically devoted to independence.
Right.
And about a third wanted to stay with England, and there was this middle ground of people. And it just took the English to come around and fuck up things like, burn New York or take over. That sort of swayed the act.
Right.
So what do you do? Do you capture cities? The English tried that. They took Philadelphia. All right. And there's George Washington still out there. So then they tried to finally. They took. They were forced out of Boston. They just couldn't keep that. And they took New York. Okay. And so what? So then they decided they'll just carve off the strongest English portion of it down in the south, and they lost. They just couldn't do it. They were defeated in little teeny engagements. And they were coming back, marching back north after a bunch of series of little defeats. They got stuck in Yorktown. And that's when the French had already entered, and what happened is the English army was going to be refitted because the English Navy, being the strongest in the world, would come and bring supplies and maybe even get them out of there and move them to whatever hell else they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But the French and the English had a battle, naval battle, and while it was a stalemate, a storm came up and forced the British Navy away. The French came over and blockaded these guys. Now the English army's stuck. So there's the attrition. They just probably saw the handwriting on the wall and they surrendered. And after 7 years or so, the English finally said, "I think we've had enough of this.
Yeah.
It's costing us too much. And, we won't give this up."
Was that like the beginning of the decline of the British Empire, or was that just one?
No,
No.
it was still strong up through the early 1800s. It wasn't until the decline, I guess, officially the decline would be, I guess, the loss of India and Afghanistan, which is at the turn of the... Well, they held India until World War II, but continuously.
Right. When did England become so powerful? Do you know that? Around about?
Well, they got into the Dutch and the French and the English were all trying to, Spanish and Portugal were all trying to carve out spheres of influence throughout the world.
Right.
And it was basically for trading. And the English were especially worried about the Dutch East India, and they wanted to go out there towards India and all that stuff. And so they had a series of wars, and they finally defeated the Dutch. And took over that. And that's when they started. That must have been it started, I guess, 1750s or so. And then they also defeated the French here in America, took over a sphere of influence in North America. So they had India and North America as their domain. And they always had a navy because they were an island, so they needed that.
So their reign as like the most powerful country in the world didn't last too long. 300 years maybe?
300 years, yeah. Oh, think about that with America too, right?
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time, and you can see it coming with China, right?
Right. And India.
Perhaps. The only thing that I can say is, there was Japan for a while. Wow, they're going to eat our lunch, but as you already know, the Japanese culture isn't very inventive. It's so staid. You have to get permission to be ambitious or come up with an idea. You just can't be young and say, God, I got this internet idea. It has to go to the senior man, and they have to be convinced. And if they're not, it's dead.
Right.
And China, is kind of like that. I don't think they have the entrepreneurial... They do, because they've been merchants forever. I mean, that's why you had to kowtow to them in Asia all the time. And they spread. They were merchants. They traded with everybody. So it's natural for them to be business-like, but still, a communist country can only allow so much freedom. So unless that changes, I can't think of China being. They'll still eat our lunch, but not to the degree that I worry about.
I've heard a lot of talk about how China's growth might be very much so a bubble kind of growth that might implode sooner or later, depending on how it goes in the next 10 years or so. If it starts to revolve around speculation and things like that, and a lot of property sales.
Well, they're going to have property. They're going to have a class problem because they've got a nouveau riche. And they've got other people who are going into cities for jobs and farms, and so things are changing social-wise, but they've got to, figure out how to make everybody a little more happy. Because I'd be kind of pissed off if I can't be a nouveau riche because I'm stuck in this fucking factory putting together iPads.
Or like
repetitive motion. Stuff. India still has a caste system, and they're a little better, and they're going to be the counterbalance to China. Obviously, we're trying to get cozy with India because we need an ally there that's almost as dominant. But India has problems. They can't make the things work particularly well. It's just their culture. So there's a cultural change. They have railroads that work, but they can't build roads. They can't get cars to people. They're trying to, but then there's caste and stuff. they feed themselves.
Yeah.
What comes first, my friend? I'm trying to feed. They're very intelligent, but most of the, the grad students that I see in China, they go back home.
Yeah.
But in India, they stay here. They tend to stay here. But it's this guy. I'm not lying. These neighbors of ours. They're a fascinating young couple. And so he went to school, and he went to school with his servants. Just like in the old days in England. When you took your servants. Jeeves.
Yeah.
And there's a kind of a arranged marriage. I guess it's work because they're still together and they have these 2 kids. And they're changing. They are changing. But I've got other Indian neighbors, and it'll be snowing, say, and they'll say, oh, they're not smart enough to move their car off the road in their driveway, so they leave it there, and then the grader comes in and sacks up snow and blocks them in, and then turns to ice after a while, and then they can't get the car out.
Right.
So they'll come and they'll say, can we borrow a shovel, a snow shovel? And I'll look at them and I said, well, the snow shovel's not going to help. That's solid ice. And I said, what I have here is this tamping bar, and you're going to have to break that ice up and do that. And I guess so. Have at it. Here's the tamping bar. They don't do manual labor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, actually, what they're asking is for me to do that or something. They, so cutting grass, they don't cut grass. That's beneath them.
Right.
So culturally, so our neighbors have changed. They're not seeing now gardening and doing stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but boy, initially they just, said, okay, that's fine. I can live with that. But here's how we do it around here because that's what we have to do.
Yeah. That's definitely interesting.
They had fans when they moved in. So I got these fans, I got the boxes, and I said, okay, here, let me show you how to wire this stuff. So it's pretty easy. Red, thingy. So just do that. Well, they weren't going to do that. I guess they wanted me to do that.
Yeah. So it'll be harder for like a middle class to.
So with that, I'm just sitting there going, gee, that's not roll up your sleeves and let's go do this thing. And there's a division of labor here that's very dominant. It's a culture.
Interesting. I had a friend, several friends in Japan from Hong Kong, and it was interesting because when they talked about going to graduate school and everything, they talked about going to America and then definitely returning to China. We have the better schools still, but they can get better jobs where they were from. It's just very interesting because it did, the way my friend Quick was talking about it, he did make it sound like it was normal. Like going to America, it's very
When I was doing all these workshops, previous contract, I'd have to go out and not only attend these scientific workshops, but I'd get all these speakers and stuff. And my people who I work for, this agency, would sit there and say, we're uncomfortable with this. Look at the people who are attending and speaking. And I said, well, you better become more tolerant to this because that's the state of grad schools.
Yeah.
They're all 60% are foreign, and especially in the sciences. And there's nothing else I can do about this. This is the state of the world.
Right.
Well, and I said, well, go talk to my government boss here. Because they do.
So what do you think the future of America will be like?
I worry about it because the idea of job creation and a service economy just doesn't sound sustainable.
Right.
You have to do something, it seems to me. So don't worry about that. You come up with all these great, here's a new app for, whatever. Well, okay, how long is that going to, that's instant gratification shit.
Yeah, intangible too.
What's the long term?
Right.
And all the industry's gone because of labor and stuff, so I don't worry about that. And American students aren't studying the sciences. They're doing wishy-washy things. MBAs, I guess. Law.
psychology degrees.
in psychology. Jesus Christ. So yeah, that's worrisome.
Yeah. Do you think that it could ever work in this country to have sort of a second New Deal kind of package? Like if, things that kind of revamped America domestically during Roosevelt's presidency, could that work? To kind of stimulate the economy from within?
If I was going to stimulate the economy,
Yeah.
I mean, this is drop dead simple. I don't know why it's initially when Obama came into the presidency, he had support of Wall Street. They thought he was a change, and they needed change because things were tanking.
Yeah.
He's now alienated them. But I think the government can stimulate the economy. I don't think trying to work on lowering the deficit, while that's noble and not a bad idea, isn't as important to doing something like, one, fixing the infrastructure. So all these roads, all this shit.
Yeah.
They need money. And the government can supply that, initiate that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll bet if you've got a whole bunch of businessmen, they'd say, I wouldn't mind that because I got a lot of trucks that are taking forever to get to these places and it's carrying all my goods or trains or whatever.
Right.
And I can get behind that. And once he gets business behind it, Republicans represent business theoretically. I mean, what are they going to say?
Yeah.
I think he could make a coalition and make a case that our most pressing need is to,
Improve the infrastructure.
improve the infrastructure.
Right.
It's going to be a long-term goal. It's going to improve all the businesses, which will then create jobs and all this bullshit and stuff.
Right.
I think it makes sense. The other with everybody glommed onto education. That's the other one. I don't know what you can do, but making psychology majors into physicists or
Make it illegal.
I guess.
Drop it from the curriculum. Is this part of the Metro line?
Yeah, so here's this one. So they're going to send this Metro now out to Dulles.
Right.
All right, that's a good idea. Where people use it.
Yeah.
You can see all the people who use the Metro are backed up in these cars.
Right.
However, it comes to who's going to pay for it?
Yeah.
And the government put some money in, but now it's up to the local governments, and they're going like, we're not going to.
Have they done like a penny tax or anything like that?
They add stuff to here, they do things, but it's Loudoun County, that expensive county's out there, and they're part of it because Dulles is in Loudoun County.
Oh, it
Dulles
is. Airport.
And they're sitting there going, we don't, we're conservative now. We don't want to raise taxes, nor do we want to, add deficit, strap our children to this bill for the rest of, for 5,000 years. And so they're hedging on this stuff, and they're building it. I don't know what's going to happen. It's just one reason. It's hoping to get a little earlier jump, but it's still bad then. So they've got enough money to get it to Reston.
Right.
And the next stop is Herndon. It'd be nice if Herndon could get
Jump on it as well.
in there.
Yeah.
And they will have to take it to Dulles. They had plans of sending it further out to Loudoun County, but that's not going to happen. So it has to get to Dulles because that's the whole raison d'etre. And but nobody wants to pay for this stuff. And you can see all these things. Everybody says infrastructure, great idea. But I don't want to raise taxes. I don't want an addition to gas tax.
Right.
All the stuff. Everybody, we need to fix the roads.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Takes money.
It's
So.
and Americans, I just sit there and stare at that. Well, where's that going to come from, dickhead?
Yeah. Do you think in that specific case, America's sheer size really works against them? It's a country like Germany or something. They're dealing with such a finite area in comparison. If they want to have a rail system, it doesn't have to stretch for thousands of miles.
Rail's not going to ever work.
Well, yeah, for sure. But even the roads.
Roads are the key. I would add airports because airports are going to transport things. So, I got to go one more over. That's right. So anyway, here we are. We're just nobody. It's a nice idea to have these rails, especially in busy corridors. But it's just Americans are conditioned to drive their car.
Yeah.
It's just one of those. It's a cultural thing, like India or China. We drive cars.
Right.
We like to stop at the grocery store on the way home or pick up the kid, and so you can't do it with the metro. It's just too inconvenient.
But do you think a paradigm shift could occur if enough things?
It would have to be a gasoline shortage of cataclysmic proportions.
So like $7 a
Yeah,
gallon.
to
or something.
make people consider
Yeah.
alternatives. And it happened here when everybody shifted to the metro a while back when there was some gas dilemma. But then it dropped and they were back on the car.
I wonder.
And you don't see any little cars either. Everybody
Yeah.
likes bigger cars. But the whole problem is that America, so the paradigm of America is that from ever that if you don't like it here, or if you're farm, they would farm here in the colonial days
Right.
until they depleted the nutrients
Of the soil.
of the soil because they didn't know enough to rotate crops and add manure and do, replenish it, and just give soil a rest, and so who cares? And they move west and they make another farm.
Right.
And they deplete that and they move west until they're at the Pacific Ocean. And as I said, here's Loudoun County, and everybody just goes out. You buy a house out there, it's cheaper, even if it's costing you a lot to commute, and it's taking time out of your life to commute to boot. Instead of, the main investment, you should really consider paying more and be closer. And there's a quality of life thing that you can't quantify, but you're not in the car for hours, and all this. You can spend time with the kids. Well, forget that. But anyway, and there's no central cities. I mean, New York is one.
Yeah.
But there's all these cities are they're sprawling things, and
Yeah.
everybody lives forever out there.
Right.
In Europe, everybody still lives in the cities, and so
Right.
there's strong, streetcars and buses and trains and the cars. Everybody just gets these little cars or they don't need cars. A lot of people just don't need cars. You know how that is.
Japan's very similar.
But our culture is just keep going out further.
Right. We have the land, so we use it.
But luckily, we can still feed ourselves because that land was farmland. But they have these now, corporate farms that are just their businesses are totally efficient,
Right.
and they can grow. I mean, when Marsh was there, I said, God, I bought this pork loin. It's $1.99 a pound. You can't raise that. How can anybody? The farmer sold that and theoretically made a profit, and these guys are passing down $1.99 a pound. How can they do that? I mean, that's cheap eats, man.
Yeah. It's almost like buying apples. It's about the same price.
Yeah. So, because some of these great apples are about $2 a pound. So places. So I don't. So the United States is blessed; it can produce food, thank God, still.
Yeah.
And so farmer turns his son doesn't want to farm anymore, so he sells the thing, the old family farm.
Moves to the city, moves to the suburbs.
It just goes to a retirement community. Or Belize, or whatever.
Belize.
So yes, I'm worried. What I'm really worried about is the social contracts that one had when I was growing up. You would work for a company, and you could change, but basically you devoted yourself to GE and you'd work there. And GE gave you, health insurance, and then they gave you an annuity if you worked there for so many years. And theoretically, that you could retire off that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not the case anymore. I mean, the last is the government. You can see from Wisconsin, and that's on the chop block now. And it's because people are jealous. Why? I don't have any health insurance, or I don't have any retirement. Why do these dickheads have it? Right? And on top, what happened was the social contract in the past was, before all these companies started bailing, to more efficient, firing people to be streamlined. The government work was, I always knew my friends made more than I did in the private sector.
Yeah.
But I was willing to live with that, one, because at the time at certain ports I enjoyed my job, and two, I knew I had this annuity out there, this heavenly annuity. And now, though, they've cut not only the size of companies and the benefits, but they've cut the salaries, and so now government is probably is equal to, or maybe sometimes even more than the private sector. And so people are quite jealous over this. The social fabric is falling apart, and so that's why I worry. I worked hard so I'd have this retirement.
Yeah.
You ain't going to have it, buddy. You're going to be in charge of it. They're going to tell you that you have to, we'll put in some money to a 401k minimal, but you need to do it yourself. And
Yeah.
who the hell is smart enough to know to do that when you're stupid and young, right?
I know.
I'll wait till later. Well, no, that's the idea, is to keep putting a couple kopecks away every acre.
Right.
So that's a thing. I work by my kids. They're going to work till they literally drop. I'm going to work till I drop my kids too, but that worries me. I had to bless. I'm blessed with that. That's pretty neat.
And Social Security won't extend to me either, right?
Well,
Most likely.
I don't know what they're going to do. That's almost a sacred cow. I don't know how they're going to ever change that. That's embedded now. It's in the mindset of everybody. I don't see how they're ever going to get rid of Social Security.
That was instituted by FDR, right?
Yes, he did.
So that's not a very old program.
It's not very old, but because everybody puts in it, and believe me, everybody thinks that's what they're going to live on when they retire. And you're paying your taxes even when you work, the Social Security for me.
Right.
And hopefully there'll be somebody behind you. So, it's the pyramid game, right?
Right.
Geez. That's really not much, so I don't know.
Is it like $300 a month?
Truthfully, I've finally worked enough quarters because in government I don't get Social Security. But I've worked now long enough to qualify. And every time I try to go and find out, and then I'll call somebody and say, well, we can't really tell you until you retire, and then we calculate. And I said, don't you have a chart? It gives me some idea that if I work so much, break down my
A rough estimate.
I'm just, I don't know what it gives me, but whatever it is, I'll have Social Security. And this year, I'm going to be forced, because it's mandated, to go on to Medicaid. Even though I have my own health insurance, now I have to use Medicaid. And I don't know why that is, but okay. So now my insurance company and Medicaid fight over things. That's all I need, is to have, I had brain surgery, so who's going to pay for this? Well, and it goes back and forth, and they send you the bill because they're like, I don't need this,
Right.
My head hurts. So I start Medicaid this next year, and I don't know what that means. I'm watching Friends. I'm trying to contact them. And so tell me what. So how's it working? Have you ever had to use it? And is it okay?
Yeah.
When my mom was sick and I was taking care of her paperwork and doing bills and stuff, all her medical bills would come in, and besides Medicaid and Medicare, it just was naturally taken care of. She never was, never had to pay for all this excruciatingly expensive stuff. So
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, so I'm hoping it'll be the same with me. But now the doctors aren't paid enough. See, so here it goes again. So they, government says, we're setting the price for what it costs to, do brain surgery. Doctors say, well, much? I charge this much. Well, it's that much you get. Well, I think I'll drop out of Medicare and Medicaid, because here's how much I charge. That's a problem. So I don't know, the whole world's going to hell in a handbasket, Kenneth. I worry about my kids, yes.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it's just the inevitable shift that happens every period on Earth.
And so my dream is it'll shift back. People get screwed and they'll say, God, why don't we form a labor union? You know, well, we used to have one. You know, well, we need to stand up in unison here because these guys are fucking us.
Yeah.
And they'll come back, and then here we go, and then, you know, the cyclic event.
But has it ever come back to a country that previously held that position?
I've seen this stuff all the time. Yeah, it goes through cycles. Yeah, it just depends on what the catalyst is that drove you off from one end, and then some, you know.
Well, I feel like with China and potentially with India too, it's almost like all the problems that America is dealing with now is because we're dealing with basically an old model that worked, 50 or 60 years ago, and trying to still superimpose the values that was built on into a more modern and globalized landscape. But China and India developing now, they can already take all of that into account, so they don't have to. They're not paralyzed by the same kind of problems because they're just now.
They have cheap labor.
Yeah.
Bottom line, you can't do it here. Nobody can do this stuff. It's just why it's all farmed out, and it's global. Don't forget globalization. That's a major factor.
Right.
Everything is connected now. Transportation, so basic species to economic stuff, globalized. So, all your food, your stupid mangoes and stuff, it's so easy because they come from someplace. It's not grown here.
Right.
And it's cheap.
Yeah.
It's fucking cheap. It's globally, these models are it's just a transportation thing, and they've got cheap labor. Christ. So, I just sit there and look at this stuff coming in, and it's so inexpensive. And it's made so you can't make that. They can't make shirts now here in the United States. They just make it's in China.
Right.
Labor costs, but yet it's still cheap to transport it. Now they're finding that with fluctuating fuel prices, it's now starting to tip the boat the other way, where
it's not cost effective.
It's not cost efficient. While it's cheaper labor there, all of a sudden the other factor of getting it back here to the market or elsewhere, it's not. So why not do it here? Because then we can split the difference in the labor and the shipping costs, and it'll still be profitable. And so a lot of time, what is happening just, this last year with the gas prices, they started bringing back jobs. And those will go in as a coincidence as gas prices go down. Look at the bottom line. It's not like your patriotic duty to give jobs to Americans, right?
Right.
You're paid, patriotic duty is to give dividends to the owners of the company. That's the patriotic duty. Stockholders, to the stockholders, to the board.
It's definitely not sustainable, that system.
It is sustainable. It's just it's volatile. It is, because it's all based on the same stuff. It's just where you're dividing up where the labor is going to be gotten, and where the resources are, and where the market is. And the market is volatile because sometimes people can't afford to buy it, so then they
Yeah, but the way, if the majority of labor is no longer, if we're a service-based economy, and, I grew up with a generation of people that all think and want to make over $100,000 a year. But if everyone's just providing a service and all the jobs, like we have a dearth of jobs because no one, even if you are qualified to be a doctor, if we have an excess of doctors and there's too many doctors, there's more doctors than we need, then all of your education and everything has been sort of a waste of time. But it's not like there is an alternative, so you're just sort of, you can't go from being a doctor trained in medicine to a shirt maker and still have the same feeling of self-worth, I guess.
Well, they do have a lot of doctors, but the problem is, doctors are brain surgeons or cardiologists, and they need family, doctors. There's nobody going into family practice. They're all these highfalutin specialists. same as now, they finally figured out that there are too many lawyers.
Yeah.
And actually, and this is kind of the irony is that I love this, is that students, law students, are suing the universities because
Suing them.
the universities, they're law students, don't you know? And because they're going into a job market that's saturated. So why didn't they tell them this or something, right?
Right.
Whose fault is this? Well, and so I thought, well, there you go. There are too many lawyers. That's good news.
But you think it is sustainable? Because it seems like it's so drastically changed. Because that guy, Richard
The
Feynman.
whole process is sustainable.
Yeah.
You know, you make something, you sell it.
Yeah.
You know, where's the labor? But it's because of globalization. It's going to influence different places, different times. The
Right.
process is sustainable. It's just where it's going to be made, where it's going to be sold, and where it's going to be built, and where the resources are.
Right.
And all those can shift and change.
Right.
But the whole thing is the same. You want stuff, you buy it.
Mm-hmm.
You make it, someone makes it, you buy it.
So that does sound sustainable, but do you think that's the current model that America is using?
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like it's drastically changed.
You know, like I said, it's not cast in stone. Everything changes.
Yeah. Well, Richard Feynman, I was reading about him. His father was a big influence in his life, and his father was a uniform salesman. And I don't know anyone really who has a parent that does that kind of work. Every person that I can think of, their parent does a service. They're in some service-based job, and it seems like that's trickled down from my parents' generation to our generation as well. Most people, I mean, there's a ton of insurance agents, a lot of real estate agents, these little pockets of the economy that we're doing really well and have recently not done so well.
Who the hell? Okay, I did this. But he said that I could get to it by turning in here. So I'm going to go in here, see if I can go over to where.
The Netherlands.
Fort Myer, but it says Fort Myer, but.
Shit.